concept that has been romanticized, debated, and even commodified in our modern world. The idea of finding yourself. This phrase is thrown around in self-help books, motivational speeches, and even casual conversations. But what does it really mean to find yourself? Is it a journey of self-discovery? Or is it a myth we've been sold to keep us searching endlessly? To begin, let's question the very foundation of this idea. Is there a fixed, unchanging self to find? Or are we constantly evolving, shaped by our experiences, relationships, and environments? This is where the debate begins. In The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus argues that life is inherently absurd, and the search for meaning, or a fixed self, is futile. He suggests that we must create our own meaning in a meaningless world. If Camus is right, then finding yourself might be less about discovering a pre-existing identity and more about creating one through your choices and actions. On the other hand, Carl Jung, in Man and His Symbols, introduces the concept of the individuation process, where individuals strive to integrate their conscious and unconscious selves to achieve wholeness. Jung believed there is a true self buried beneath layers of societal conditioning, and the journey to uncover it is essential for psychological growth. So, is the self something we uncover or something we create? This tension between discovery and creation is at the heart of the myth. The commodification of self-discovery. Now, let's talk about how this myth has been commercialized. In the happiness industry, William Davies critiques how the pursuit of self-discovery has been turned into a lucrative industry. From wellness retreats to life coaches, we're told that we need to find ourselves to be happy. But is this just a way to sell us products and services? Are we being sold the idea that we're incomplete, so we'll keep buying solutions? Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love is a perfect example of this narrative. The protagonist embarks on a global journey to find herself after a painful divorce. While the story is inspiring, it also raises questions. Do we need to travel the world to find ourselves? Or is this just another form of escapism, disguised as self-discovery? The danger of a fixed identity. Another problem with the idea of finding yourself is that it assumes a static identity. But what if who we are is constantly changing? In Becoming, Michelle Obama writes, "For me, becoming isn't about arriving somewhere or achieving a certain aim. I see it instead as forward motion, a means of evolving, a way to reach continuously toward a better self." This idea of becoming challenges the notion of a fixed self. Perhaps instead of searching for who we are, we should focus on who we're becoming. Similarly, in The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir argues that women are not born with a fixed essence, but are shaped by their circumstances and choices. She famously wrote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." If this is true, then the idea of finding yourself might be limiting. It assumes that there's a final destination when in reality we're always in flux. The role of relationships in self-discovery. Let's also consider the role of relationships in this journey. In All About Love, Bell Hooks argues that love is essential for self-discovery. She writes, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving." When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape. This suggests that finding yourself isn't just an individual endeavor. It's deeply connected to how we relate to others. But here's the twist. Sometimes relationships can obscure our sense of self. In The Untethered Soul, Michael A. Singer warns against identifying too closely with our roles and relationships. He writes, "You are not your thoughts, your emotions, or your relationships. You are the awareness behind them." This raises an important question. Are we using relationships to define ourselves, or are we using them to better understand ourselves? The paradox of self-discovery. Finally, let's talk about the paradox at the heart of this myth. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle argues that the search for self is often rooted in the ego's desire for validation. He writes, "The moment you realize you are not your mind, you step out of it." Tolle suggests that true self-discovery isn't about finding something external or even internal. It's about being present and letting go of the need to define yourself. This brings us to a profound question. What if the act of searching for yourself is what keeps you from truly knowing yourself? What if, instead of searching, you simply need to be? Embracing the journey. So, is finding yourself a myth? It depends on how you define it. If you see it as a destination, a fixed identity to uncover, then yes, it might be a myth. But if you see it as a process, a continuous journey of becoming, then it's very real. The key is to embrace the journey without getting lost in the search. As Rainer Maria Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves." Perhaps the myth of finding yourself isn't about finding answers at all. It's about learning to live with the questions, to embrace the uncertainty, and to find meaning in the journey itself. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. See you in the next video.